We should be working.
The Finance and Human Resources meeting is called to order on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 6:07 p.m. Would you call the roll, please?
Alderperson Kastner?
Oh, shoot. Present.
Alderperson Bailey?
Present.
Alderperson Sarian?
Present.
And for the minutes, Alderperson Collins has joined us tonight.
Thank you. Item 2.
Just to be clear in the minutes, this isn't a committee meeting as a whole. Alderperson Collins is a guest. Alderperson Akers was invited and is excused.
It
Item
would
2.
make more sense to be a committee of the whole if we were actually voting on the budget.
So there's some danger to having a committee meeting of the whole, because historically, just so you understand, there's a reason that you don't do it, because sometimes guests that aren't on the committee can vote with a member of the committee to basically have a vote that would be different than the committee itself. For example, if Pam and Denise and Carl wanted to do something, and you're the chair of the committee, and you're on the committee and you didn't want to do it, they could change the underlying vote or recommendation of the committee as a committee meeting of the whole. Right? She can't vote now. Pam, if she was here, couldn't vote. It's just a technical. I'm not trying to be.
No, I can't remember what that item was, though.
And that happened once, a long time ago.
All right. Got it.
We don't know who.
Item 2, approval of the September 8th, 2021 Finance and Human Resources Committee minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3, presentation of proposed 2022 budget and brief discussion.
You have before you the proposed budget for 2022 that we have worked with staff. I'll give you some highlights. It's in typical fashion like every year. This is the proposed budget. What we're asking for tonight is that it be published, right? That doesn't mean that that's ultimately the budget, but it's the budget that would be published. So when we have the public hearing in the middle of November, I can't remember, November 17th?
November 16th.
16th, my birthday.
My son's
Your birthday,
grandson's.
17th? She's a week older than I. So we have a budget that we discussed at the public hearing. So anything between now and then that may want to be tweaked or changed, or if additional numbers come in with regard to health insurance or some other thing, property insurance, those revisions would be made prior to the public hearing, but the public hearing is noticed with this proposed budget. That's how we've done it ever since I've been here. To give you an idea of what this budget takes into account. With regard to salary increases, the city has consistently offered 2% salary increases in the last 2 collective bargaining agreements with the police and firefighters, which would be 6 years. This is the last year of that run. I'm proposing 2% increases next year. Police and fire contracts are subject to collective bargaining next year. But this is what I have budgeted, 2%, which is consistent with what I've done the last, actually it's close to 10 years, I think, but 6 years at least. Health insurance, we initially budgeted 10%. Julie's managed to work with our broker and the insurer, renewed it at 5% is the proposed renewal rate, which is good considering there were some concerns with regard to when you have bad cases and you're a small plan. Sometimes that stuff can have an impact on the overall rate, but 5% is good. This is the 16th straight year at least of single-digit health insurance increases, which I'm actually pretty proud of. The levy limit increase per the formula for the 2021 budget says that we can raise property taxes a total of collectively among every entity $315,697. That is often not enough to cover an increase in health insurance or wages. That's how much we can raise taxes, okay? Consistent with the levy limit formula. right? That's the right way to say it. Just want you guys to understand that.
How do you keep public safety under 1%?
We are very, we'll just, it depends because.
Because we're at like 7,
It, let me go through my thing, otherwise I'll lose
could
my.
be, okay, sorry.
Okay. Expenditure Restraint Program, which is another state program that I'm always talking to you folks about, right? This is the formula that says, this is what your expenditures should be able to go up based on our formula. The expenditure restraint allowable increase from the 2021 budget would be $1.141,550, $1.1 million. What that formula suggests is that the average cost, cost of doing business for this city, while it's not perfect, probably should go up $1.1 million. Okay? The levy limit increase, again, is, so we could, while they say you can, those are the expenditures that you can increase. The only revenue that we can raise in the form of property taxes is $315,000 of that, okay? Which, with rough math, that's $700,000-800,000, right? $700,000, right? Plus or minus. That if we had the ability to raise taxes $700,000 more, not saying that we would, but that 7 plus that 300 from the levy limit would cover, generally speaking, salary increases at 2%, health insurance increases, and the extreme capital equipment requirements that we have. Copiers, police cars, fire trucks, right? So with this $315,000 that we can raise the levy, that goes towards capital equipment, that goes to salary increases, and that goes to health insurance increases, and any other expenditure increase that we have. That doesn't cover it. Okay? That's a problem, right? And it's a problem that we've had historically, but is getting worse. Tax rate, a lot of people are concerned about tax rates. So remember too that, and I can't remember what our equalized, non-equalized ratio is it 0.8 something? So our tax rate here, this here is $9.28. Right? $9.28 is what it is this year. Next year, the $315,000 levy increase will make it $9.31. So you may say, oh my God, that's a lot, right? It is a lot. It's in Milwaukee County, and it's about 80%, whatever that ratio is, right, of what the tax rate would be at 100% valuation. We have been out of whack with regard to property valuations in the city, right? Houses that were once 130 are now 180 or 200, right? Generally speaking, when the assessor looks at all of the properties in the city, let's just pretend they were all worth $100, right? We value them on your property tax bill at $80. What does that mean? We can only collect so much in property taxes, right? On that $100 of house that we have in the city, let's pretend we can collect $1, okay? If it's at 80% valuation or at 100% valuation, we still collect $1. It's just what is the rate that you use to get to $1. If you're fully assessed at, say, $100, to get to that dollar, the equalized rate would be $1, right? At 80%, it would be like $1.20. Does that make sense? Or $1.30? Am I making sense when I say that? Ultimately, it doesn't matter what the rate is, because the total levy is what we can collect. The levy and what we can collect is based on the tax rate. The tax rate is based on what we assess houses at. So people think, well, we're going to reassess all the houses in the city, and my taxes are going to go up. No, they won't go up, assuming everybody's goes up exactly the same, right? The tax rate will just fall. So while their valuation may go up, the rate associated per thousand goes down. I don't know if that makes sense, but
We could argue that for.
you could argue that, well, there's a lot of things to take into account. Could talk for hours about it, but in the old day, when 2008, when the market crashed,
Yeah.
right? All of the condos were reevaluated upward. Remember that? And then the market crashed, and they had these huge valuations. right? And then the tax rate was associated with those huge valuations because of the way the formula works. The formula doesn't take into account market crashes, right? It kind of looks backward as far as valuations go. That was a huge problem. So
If you had a condo.
if you had a condo, it was a huge problem. If you had a house, it could, depending on the house, it could be a huge problem too.
Yeah.
If you had a mortgage on that house that was at the higher valuation and now was underwater, that was a huge problem too. All of those things happen. So right now, we've been putting money away to do a reassessment of the entire city. I wanted to do it last year, I wanted to do it the year before. The problem that I'm having is that I'm afraid that we're going to reassess in a bubble. Housing prices within the city and everywhere, some would say, are in a bubble because people are buying payments, because of low interest rates, right? If the interest rate's 3 or 4%, something like that, and your payment's $1,100 on a $300,000 house that may be only worth $250, or really might only be worth $200 if the interest rates were at 8%, right? So we have all these inflated houses potentially. Now, whether they're going to stay there or not, no one knows, right? I want to, because being at 80% evaluation on the taxes, it all gets through the formula and the rate gets adjusted, right? So it's not like people are paying less or paying more than they should. They're just, it's going through the formula based on the last valuation of their home. Going through this discussion, it's like you get in trouble when you don't value at 100%, right? The state says, the law says that you need to come into compliance and you have so much time to do it. I think it's 3 years or 5 years. 5 years. We're not
So we got plenty of time.
we're not at that point yet. But I don't feel comfortable going on forever. We have time. So I wanted to revalue the homes, reassess the homes going into 2022. We have the money to do that. I want it to be a complete reval. I don't want it to just be condos or just single-family homes or just apartment buildings or just commercial properties. It's all of them at once. One of the dangers too is that while housing prices, if it isn't a bubble and they don't go down, right, they stay, that means they're worth more. Commercial properties, generally speaking, other than the really big boxes, are declining in value because they're based on sales per square foot. There's a formula they use. There's a number of formulas, right? Which could mean that once everything gets equalized again, and it's like commercial properties are now worth less, and single-family homes are now worth more, and apartment buildings are who knows where they are, right? The big value stuff. That could have a dramatic impact on whose property tax bill, what happens to people's property tax bills.
Piece of the pie.
The piece of the pie, right? Because remember, whatever the levy is what we can collect. And it doesn't matter if we're worth collectively $1 billion as a city or $3 billion as a city. That's the levy. That's how much we can collect from whatever that valuation is. And how that valuation is split between residential properties, multifamilies, condos, commercial, all has an impact, okay? So all of that being said, the rate at an 80% valuation, right, is gone up 2 cents. If it was at 100%, the rate would be 2.4 cents, 2.2 or 2.4 cents, something like that, right? I think, right? I don't know if you can. It wouldn't be much. There's not a huge difference because we can't raise taxes, because we can't raise the levy. This is the problem I've been talking about for months. This budget, you know, the $315,000 that we can raise the levy, we are. Why are we doing that? We do that every year. Usually it's 2%, plus or minus, right? Bruce is every year it's like 2%. Yeah, you know, that's good. So that budgeted amount, the levy limit increase, is generally, as far as the formula goes, it's generally net new construction within the city. For years we've been lucky, we've had 2% net new construction, which does pretty good numbers. It usually gives us about 700,000 plus or minus, right? That's typically what health insurance and raises cost. Not capital equipment, not any of that other stuff. Health insurance and raises are about $600,000 to $700,000. And I'm speaking broad brushed here, okay? We always maximize levy limits because if you don't maximize the levy limit, you lose it. So if I were to say in this budget, you know, things are really bad, I'm not going to raise the levy by the $315,000 next year when I presented the budget, I don't have that capacity. It's gone forever. If you don't use it, you lose it, okay, as a baseline. This budget does not take expenditures to the ERP limit. So this is another thing that you try to do when you do a budget. The Expenditure Restraint program, which is kind of the cost of living formula that's out. It's not a cost of living CPI exactly, but it's kind of a formula that does that stuff, okay? And if you look up above, right, it's $1.1 million that we could raise it, our expenditures, if we had the revenue to do it, okay? Typically what you want to do is you want to preserve your expenditure, your ability to have expenditures, okay? You want to have within the formula, if it says you can raise your expenditures $1.1 million, then you want to, even if it's artificially in your budget, raise your expenditures $1.1 million. How do you do that? In this case, how would you do that if you wanted to do it? You would say put $700,000 in contingency in your budget, saying we're going to put $700,000 in case something bad happens in our budget, and we're not expecting it to, but we're putting it in there because that is in our budget considered an expenditure, even if we don't expend it, right? So next year, the baseline is that amount of expenditures. Ultimately, at the end of the year, you would have a surplus, right? You aren't deficit spending potentially, assuming everything is perfect, right? This year, we did not do that. We did not go to the absolute limit. This, and I'm reading this, this was an effort to bring down our budgeted use of fund balance amount in the general fund. In 2021, we put $927,000 of fund balance into the budget in various categories to spend. We won't know how much of that we've spent until the audit is complete in March. In our fiscally prudent ways, however, we expect that a very large portion of that will not be spent. Okay, which goes back to our cash reserves. Okay, does that make sense? In 2022, we're going to use $700,000 of fund balance, which isn't the complete limit, right? 700 plus the 315 isn't 1.1 million. It's a little less than that. We're trying to preserve as much of the expenditures as we possibly can in the expenditure restraint program, the ability, the flexibility to have it if we need it in the event that there is ever other revenue. So that's what we're doing in this budget. Do we expect to spend $700,000 next year? We don't know. But the good thing is that when we went to Moody's, so we go to get our bonds done every year, right? And Shirley, I think, has been in, and Carl's been in there. I'm not sure if Denise or Bruce have ever been in a Moody's call, a conference call. So every time we go out to borrow anything, we go and we have lately we've had Zooms, which aren't nearly as fun as in-person ones. But we talk about how financially stable and solid the city is, right? Currently we're AA2, right? Which is probably the highest we can get. There are some AAA, I can't remember what the numbers, because Standard & Poor's and Moody's do it differently. So there's AAA, which is the best, AA, single A, triple B,
City's not big
double
enough.
B, right? So there are some cities in Wisconsin and counties that are AAA, and we're AA. They're AAA because they have a ton of resources and they have a lot of. We'll never have that. Most of the communities that are around us are AA, and that's high. When I took over initially, we were in the Bs 15 or 16 years ago. We were triple B, I think. or when I was an alderperson, we were in the Bs, and then we went to A, and then when I became mayor, we went to double A. So this use of fund balance, we have to balance, just getting back to this, this year's budget was $900,000 roughly, this next year is gonna be $700,000. Moody's had concerns when we went on our call the last time. It's like, you guys are really using a lot of fund balance, right? And we have to explain to them that we're really not, right? Or we're hoping we're not. I mean, we're hoping something really bad doesn't happen. We have to kind of demonstrate to them that, and we will hopefully by the time next March rolls around, that we didn't really spend that $900,000, right? We didn't spend all of it in this year's budget to get up and going into next year, we're even forecasting less use, $700,000 what we're expecting. So, okay, here's the next question. It's like, okay, so if you're gonna get all this money back, right, you're not spending it, it's in your budget, right? Shouldn't we just use that and then we can not raise taxes? Well, the problem is that there's this other consideration. It's like, what kind of fund balance do you have? What kind of rainy day fund do you have? How much money do you have under the mattress in case you really need it? That's another consideration that Moody's uses. So all of this string, what are those puppets called on the strings? Marionettes, right? All this stringing stuff that we're doing is to make sure that Moody's is satisfied that we're financially sound and fluid, right? That we have enough in cash reserves, and then we're trying to tie all of that with the ERP and the levy limit stuff, right? So you're trying to get them all to be maximized, right? And to make everybody happy so we look good.
For the record, none of us are marionettes.
For the record, none of you are marionettes, and
None of the departments are marionettes.
so none of us are marionettes. I mean, Paula and Tim and I and Julie and every department head in the city is a puppeteer, right? And they all have different kinds of things going on to try to get their puppets to do certain things, so that the audience and the rules of engagement, right, are all satisfied, and they get paid by the union, the musicians union afterward. No, I don't know. So that's what's.
Thanks for the explanation.
The other thing with the ERP too, as long as you don't spend over what they say, the 1.1, we get money from the state. We get aid from the state. If we spent more than our expenditures from the previous year, we don't get money in the following year. Part of the reason it was 900,000 too is that we're still trying to readjust all of these things from the referendum when we had, you know, the new public services officers, safety officers, right? As far as ERP goes, and the reason that we do all this, we're going to get about $773,000 in state aids. That's money that we wouldn't have to levy for, that we'll be getting in aids, okay? So then you can say, well, you know, if you're getting that and you're getting the 315, then that's enough to cover everything. No, it's not, because we're already we had got ERP aids last year, right?
How much did we get last year?
730 went up $43,000, 40-something thousand, right? I thought.
Well, we got good news someplace.
Well, it's good news, but it's nowhere near the $700,000 in taxes that we really need to raise. Or I shouldn't say taxes we need to raise, revenue that we need to get to pay for the reasonable increases in costs.
Years past, it's been reduced much more.
So ERP and state aid, which is the other big chunk that we get, haven't really increased at all, forever.
No.
And that's a huge problem. They've actually declined forever. So I know some folks are going to a conference and they're going to be, well, what's the question you can ask? It's like, why don't you support increasing, you know, shared revenue to the cities? And why don't you look at the new formula, or why don't you revisit the formula to make sure that it's done fairly? And no one will ever touch that.
Why?
Because it's complicated. Because there's winners and losers. Because things have changed since the 70s or 80s when it was created. I'll use this as an example, and I don't mean to be critical, So the new populations came out, right, with the census. We're 20th in the state, right? I've always said we're like literally 1 or 2 above or below Beloit. They're 19, we're 20. We're 19, they're 20, based on estimates. Every year, that's what it's been, right? Beloit is an entitlement city based on CDGB definitions, which were likely created in the 70s, maybe early 80s. I don't know exactly when it is. And if you try to figure out what an entitlement city is and how the formula works, you won't be able to, because I've spent hours trying to figure it out. And so has Tim, and he's a lot smarter than I am. Beloit's population continues to decline. They are now the 22nd or 23rd in population in the state. Franklin and Oak Creek are accelerating. We're still above them, but in 5 years, they'll be bigger than us. As far as state aid goes, Beloit, despite shrinking in size, being essentially the exact same population as us, gets 15 million, I think it is, in shared revenue from the state every year. We get about 1.5 million. They get 10 times more shared revenue. So the incentive, I think, if you look at these formulas and how this stuff works, is to really run your city into the ground, because then you'll get more shared revenue and you'll be able to have more government. If you were to look at Beloit's budget, city budget, right, you would see that they have a very large engineering department, that they have a lot of folks working there. Their budget, I think, the last time I checked, and this was about 2 years ago, was about twice as big as ours. Is it still or not? So I'm just saying. So when you say, well, why don't they do something about it? Because it's hard. And somebody's going to lose. Right? ARPA money, right? This is the other thing, all this federal aid, right? And we'll have to get in that. You might have to help me a little bit how I'll need his explanation. I think I'll try to go through, but correct me if I'm wrong, okay? ARPA money, we got 3.8 million plus or minus over the course of 2 years, received 1.9 million of it. So 1.9 million of it so far. There's very specific rules with ARPA money. You can only spend the money kind of any way you want based on the dollar for dollar lost revenue that you can demonstrate because of COVID and all the bad stuff that happened.
Why is...
So of the 3.9 million, roughly, and I'm not saying that we followed the rules, and having a former auditor on our staff helps, right? We have roughly $1.5 million of lost revenue, which means that of the 3.9 million, 3.9 million that we've received, 1.5 million can be spent on things within our budget kind of in any way we want, generally speaking. But we have to worry about expenditure restraint, we have to worry about all these other things. Those things don't go away, but we have that, right?
Can I interrupt you just on this
Yeah.
subject?
Yeah.
Is that 3.9 million realized in this budget?
I'll get to it.
Okay.
Okay. So in the old days, what we used to do is we had a capital equipment schedule, right? And Paula and Tim still have a capital equipment schedule, and most departments still do. And what we would do every year is we put away levied dollars, tax dollars. You know, like if we need a new fire truck or police cars or something, right? We'd put so much cash away every year, and then in 10 years, we would be able to have a new fire truck, right? Because you don't want to just spend $1 million or 500 is a lot, right? We have, and I've been saying this for years, right? We can't do that anymore. We haven't been able to do that for 5 or 6 years, right? In this budget, we can only raise about 250,000 or 300, 250,000, 250,000 of levy dollars are going to capital equipment. In this budget, there's $1.5 million of capital equipment purchases. Well, how did you do that? about 500,000 of those, and this isn't perfect, but about $500,000 of those purchases are coming from our sanitary sewer or recycling fund accounts. I think I have 2 dump trucks, a street sweeper, which we have to do to comply with DNR and MMSD rules. What's the other one? That was a big one. There was another one. I can't remember. So about 500,000 of the stuff we need to buy, they have wheels and takes gas or you plug in, came from those other special revenue funds. Well, what does that mean? That means that the money in the sanitary sewer fund, the money in the recycling fund, and the recycling fund is often state aid money, that's 117 or 120,000 a year goes into this fund. And the money we collect from garbage goes in the recycling fund, means that those 2 funds are paying for that stuff. It's not in the general fund. It's got nothing to do with this $315,000 or any of this other stuff. The other $1 million of stuff that we had to buy, of which the biggest expenditures, and I encourage you to look at them. I'm not going to go through everything. It's about $250,000 in police cars. It's some money, I think, for the library's RFID system that she's been saving for 3, 4, 5 years because we could never pay for it all at once anyways. Tactical vests, guns that need, I don't know if you knew this, but tactical weapon vests, Kevlar, they expire. Doesn't mean that they don't work, it just means that they're only warranted for a certain period of time, even though chemically and materially they don't change. So we have to get those things. I mean, you can see what we're spending the money on in there. There's some other stuff that we've been delaying forever, you know. 700,000 plus or minus of the 1.5 million in money that we can spend anything we want on from ARPA is going towards capital equipment. About 250 to 300,000 plus or minus, and this is just rough math, I can give you the real numbers, is still being levied. So about $1 million is split between levy and ARPA, which is half of what we can spend from the 1.5 million of the 3.9. And the other $500,000 generally is coming from other special revenue funds. Why did you do it that way? Because there was no other way to buy bulletproof vests and police cars and make sure that our computer software stuff was still up to date and our servers are in good condition, all that stuff. There's no other way to do it. Half of the, roughly plus or minus, half of the 1.5 million of you can spend your ARPA money any way you want still remains for next year. The other part of the ARPA money, which is 3.9 million minus 1.5 million, adds up to 2.4 million. I wish we could spend that money any way we wanted to, but there are very strict, there's very strict guidance on what you can spend that on. If you were to go to, getting back to entitlement communities, right? I don't know what Beloit got, but I know Westhouse and Wauwatosa, both considered entitlement communities, for whatever reason, dating back to the 70s, received tens of millions of dollars. And they don't know, they're just basic, and it's the kind of money that they can't just spend on anything they want. They're going to be spending it on sewers and water projects, because that's one of the things that you could spend that money on.
So it begs the question, are we replenishing those special funds with this money?
No.
Because the storm sewer is...
So what we've been doing, the storm sewer, sanitary sewer rates, recycling rates, they take into account what it costs to do those services. We have fund balances in most of them. The storm sewer fund had been way overused 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, under the guidance of potentially someone else. So stormwater is getting to the point of being more fluid, and stable.
So we can't use the ARPA money on storm sewers? My
No, so no,
interpretation,
no,
we
no,
can't.
no, I take that back. So when it comes to the 2.9 million
Yeah,
that you can't spend on anything you want, it's likely that we would be spending that on sanitary storm water projects of some sort within the city. Don't know what those are yet.
okay.
We haven't touched any of that money. Of the 1.9 million that we've, 8, 9, whatever it is it, how much? 1.9 that we've received, roughly, plus and minus, 700,000 of the money that we can spend anything we want on went to the capital equipment portion in this budget, period. We didn't subsidize operating expenses, so the guidance that I've provided, and I think you guys provided all along, and when I've talked to you, is that you're not gonna get this money all the time, right? You can't rely on this money, you cannot subsidize your operating budgets using this ARPA money, because it's not gonna last forever. So, and I've always talked to you, it's like, well, we need dump trucks, we need a fire engine, right? We need all sorts of I had 3 to $4 million of capital requests from the departments this year. 2.5 million of them were things that I thought were important. And we're funding about 1.5 of it. Some of the things we can't, for all sorts of other reasons I won't get into here, we can't not pay. So does that answer your ARPA questions?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
This holes, but.
We're using approximately 124,000 more in levy dollars for debt payments compared to the 2021 budget. This affects the amount of levy dollars going to other funds. We, as a rule within the city, right, we try to have debt service be $3 to $3.5 million a year. And it fluctuates based on the size of the borrows and all those kinds of things. Why do we do that? Why don't we just spend $3.5 million in cash and roads every year, right? Well, let's just spend cash, right? This debt service goes to roads and neighborhood reconstructions almost entirely. Although the library, the police department, some other things that we did 10 years ago or 12, 15 years ago now, those are almost paid for. They're getting to that point, right? Other than those buildings, all of the debt service that we do for capital improvements go to capital improvements every year. So $3.5 million, okay? The amount of money that we levy to pay the debt on those projects fluctuates within kind of a sine wave like this. It's not like this. We try to keep it stable. This year, and it's hard, right? So why don't we pay cash for roads? Because there's a disincentive to do that. And the other problem is that some of these projects, like when we did Anthony Drive or Shirley Crest, they were $6-7 million. And you don't want to do them, and we have done projects in halves, right? And would rather do them all at once, right? But we don't want to borrow too much money because we want our bond rating to fall, right? And we don't want to jump up the amount of levy dollars that have to go to pay for debt. Does that make sense? So if we did borrow 10 million instead of 3 million to do a project like St. Francis, that would mean that the levy associated with that $10 million is going to jump pretty high the following year, which would mean any levy that we had for the debt would fall for operating, and we don't want that to happen. Is that right? Yes, generally.
We can't have that happen.
No, you can, and some communities are doing that, right? Because it's kind of like, whoa, because they don't think. There's one new position in this budget. It's like, oh my God, why are you adding people? So what we're doing is you can see by the budget that we shift people around. You'll recall in previous budgets in the Parks Department, we had these part-time maintenance guys that we were going to have in City Hall, and we were going to do all this. We've eliminated those. In DPW, I think we've lessened the seniors operators, right? I want to make sure we were top heavy in senior operators, so now we have some other operators below them, operators that don't get paid as much. So I don't want to, we've had retirement, we have all sorts of things going on. All of that position in the parks to help Kent, essentially, has been created, and we've managed to finesse personnel moves in other departments to handle that. And that's all plus and minus. So I know Alderperson Bailey's like, well, how much, I mean, I can't, somebody could drill down exactly where everything came from, probably to the penny. But a lot of it is just trying to, well, we'll take some from here, we'll take some from there. We're not going to do those. That money goes, that's what we did. That is the only position that's created. The part-time maintenance worker positions were omitted from the budget. And I can assure you that every department head is not happy. I'm just saying.
I got nothing to add to that, I don't know.
So the other issue that we're having, hiring people, I mean, you're messing with me before the meeting about hiring people, and it's not a pleasant situation right now, hiring people in any position within the city.
Within the United States.
Well, it's actually the world.
Yeah.
I was reading some stuff in the UK that they can't hire people, and in Germany they can't hire people. And I'm not sure it's because of Biden, and I'm just saying. In Europe, or, supply chains are screwed up. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Boomers quitting? Boomers quitting?
People are I've never experienced anything like it.
No?
I was in Illinois for a day over the weekend, which pained me because it's so flat there, and it's depressing. It's actually so depressing driving in Illinois. Anybody from Illinois? Gosh, are you? Seriously?
Oh, yeah, she is.
From the Flatland stuff?
Southside.
Chicago is different than.
You can't tell it's flat.
But it was bleak. It was bleak. No, but it was bleak. It was so bleak. It was a small town, and it was bleak.
There's parts
And we
of Illinois that don't suck.
so we might have been out in an establishment until about 11:30 or 12, and we may have wanted to go to McDonald's afterwards to eat. The McDonald's was closed. Wendy's was closed. The 3 truck stops on the interstate were closed. The only thing that was open was a Circle K, which is kind of like a Speedway, right? So, okay, well, let's go in there and get something, right? One of those really crappy,
Microwave burrito?
Yeah, well, something, right? Went in there, the shelves are empty. Everything was out except like Monster orange flavored energy drink, and I don't know what it was. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm not drinking that stuff. It's clear that nobody else is going to either because there's dust on it. And there was a plastic tub. Apparently they get their product by these plastic tubs with the covers, right? And it was on the floor, and they were going to put that on the shelves. That was all they received that day to replenish the shelves. Something's really screwed up in a huge way. But that's beyond the point of this budget. So this is the budget. I want to thank Paul and Tim. And Julie, and every department head. We're really blessed that we have really quality people here in these positions that are competent. And I know a couple of you are going to a conference, to talk to and listen to the seminars about all the people that are going to give us great new ideas. I can assure you that the people that are sitting in this room and other offices in this building could run those seminars as good or better than any of those people. We really have incredibly competent people and really good people that are making the city a better place. So that's the budget. I'm not sure, there's still other things we're still waiting on numbers for some things, and so there's always the adjustments. So taxes aren't going up much. They're going up a tiny bit, right? And we've managed to figure out and finesse everything to get through this year's budget. Next year will be a challenge because of the collective bargaining of the police and fires are not subject to Act 10, as you know. And I don't want to, they service extremely well, right? But there are some real limitations financially that need to be dealt with. And
If you,
I'd just
even
say
if you
that.
think about minimum wage is really 14, 15 bucks an hour right now. It isn't, but.
Oh, it
I
is.
mean, you can't hire anyone for less than that. So by that logic, we're gonna get hit hard.
I think everybody, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Everything that I read suggests that inflation is not going away. It's all very clear that the cost of doing all of this is going to change. If inflation doesn't go away and fuel prices go from $3 to $4 or $2.50 to $3.50 because we don't pay federal tax, just something like that will blow a huge hole in the budget, right? And we won't have the ability to be flexible to take care of it. Now, we have reserves, right? But those reserves are not designed to be sustained long-term. There's only one time that we sort of got a little close, and it was like 24.79, right? And we've changed our policy to be able to go to 15 if we have to, right? In case there's something bad that really happens and we have to get there. But we don't want to get there.
This budget is gonna keep us, our fund balance at about
25%.
25%, which is sort of a target number, right?
So 25%,
Self-inflicted.
it's a good number to have. It's a
That's
good
what this
number.
budget's gonna do for us?
It's like 25 point,
Around 25?
25, 26, 20, it's not below 25. And after the audit, it may go back up a little bit, but we don't know that until the year closes.
Does it include a raise of heating cost?
No, we don't. Budgets are general, so just so you know, I mean, my marching orders is your budgets are flat. Your budgets are flat. And the only thing you get is salaries and health insurance. So if you want to do something else, you better figure it out.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's not how, so we're worried about retaining good employees, and we're worried about this, and we're worried about being competitive, and we can't be competitive. We can't be competitive because we can't raise salaries of everybody necessarily to meet, you can't. And nobody can, right? Because in the private sector, when you raise those salaries, you have to raise prices, and if you raise prices, and then maybe people, right? The difference with us is that we're not Kmart, right? It can't be, well, you know, we didn't get enough, so we'll just lay people off for a month, right? Or we'll cut back on the sales or something. We don't want to be Kmart anyways, because I don't think they're around anymore. But we have to provide these services. We have to provide police officers. We have to provide health, especially now, right? All those kinds of things going on. We have to provide fire protection. If you have a heart attack, there needs to be somebody trained to resuscitate you or save you. We need to plow the streets. These aren't things that we can just do, right? So what I would encourage you guys to say, if you have the opportunity, is to say that when taxpayers in this state touch government, they touch us at the local level. They touch our streets, they touch our plowed streets, they touch our playgrounds, they hopefully don't touch our police officers or fire, right? But we're the ones that touch them. And if you keep placing us in a bad situation, there's no blaming us for bad things that happen. The blame is clearly going to be a result of what you folks do that set the guardrails for how we run our local government.
So even if it's obvious they can't do anything this year to fix the problem, but next year, hopefully the state will change the formula some way by next year, because inflation and everything else that you're speaking of is going to hit us, and we have no way to operate.
So this is, so, and I,
And to get
So
it done by
Mayor-
next year is a blush.
yeah, so we aren't the city of Milwaukee, okay, you may have read in the paper, Barrett, he's on his way out, right? This is the last, I'm using this ARPA money, but once this is gone, it's not gonna be replenished, and, this is just a precursor of really bad things that are gonna happen. Bad things are really happening there already, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing about what he said, it's true. It's to a different and varying degree as you get in the suburbs or the lake country or you get up north in Monaco or wherever you are. But the reality is if something doesn't change in a couple of years, that brown smelly stuff's gonna hit the fan. And it's not gonna be pleasant. ARPA money got us through the capital equipment requests. I could have not funded them. I could have saved it and we could have, people say, well, why don't you have community meetings and talk about all the things we could do with that money, right? Read in the Urban Milwaukee or the Milwaukee Journal this morning, the city of Milwaukee's Common Council has created a wish list that includes items that are 7 times the value of the money that they're getting from ARPA. 7 times. And they're not getting 3.9 million. Does anybody know what they're getting? It's 100 million, a couple 100 million, right? So I respect the public input, right? I know we need police cars. I know we need tactical vests. I know we need to make some technology enhancements and improvements to keep our data safe and to keep us efficient, not have to hire people. I know we have to do those things. So I made that choice. And this is the thing too, it's like, that was my choice. You guys are the elder persons. You can change that anytime you want if you think something's more important. But
I thought you had brought that up in the past, like months ago, and we all gave you the formal or informal nod that is the direction that you should.
Well, the informal nod was. I don't know about the rest of you. The informal nod was make sure we get a return on investment. Don't just fritter it away. So I think we've tried to do that.
Well, we had that discussion.
Right. Well, I just want to make sure. I don't want anybody to think that I'm.
No, that was in line with what we thought.
Right. Fair. So I would encourage you to look at it. I don't know, is there so we're actually recycling binders and stuff and paper and tabs, index tabs. Capital equipment is the yellow tab, section 4 if you want. That's really where the, huh? Well, you might have a different color tab. It's number 4. So that's all I got. Anybody else have any other questions?
I will say that's the longest presentation you've given in probably 10 years. And that's actually saying a lot coming from you, because you give long presentations.
Well, I do apologize. That was almost 45 minutes, I think. But everyone just really needs to know. I mean, and this isn't like, I've been doing this like 16, 17 years now, something like this, right? And I had 7 years as an alder person before. This is like no joke. And every year, I come in and it's like the sky is falling and it was a tough one, right? I've done that the last 3 or 4 years. Act 10, remember that? That was like, oh my God, it really is falling. I mean, I can't breathe. This is like more systemic. This is, if somebody doesn't do something, it's like, it's not a joke. I mean, things will change. Police, we've increased the levy for a police officer, and I don't know how you reduce the levy if you don't buy them. We can't. Police and firefighters are like 60, 70% of our budget, right? We can't. Denise works on elections, right? Bruce's wife works on elections. We have to have people that do that. You can't just get rid of the clerks, right? Well, we'll just bring them when we have an election. You can't do that. Darren, with all the COVID stuff that's happening and all that, and a lot of that money is coming from grants, and then it turns out, well, it might not be covered by grants or something. I mean, it's like, oh my God, really, you kidding me?
Do we need a motion out of this?
Yeah, I don't know. I think to publish, right?
Just a presentation.
It says that, but do you need it printed?
You need it printed, right?
To be able to present, or to publish it in the.
I'll make a motion to publish the budget that's in front of us on whatever date that you can. Because it's got to get in the cycle. So that's my motion.
Just a second.
Second.
Just one
So
quick.
what's the date? When do we have to?
November 16th it would be.
Yeah.
November 16th.
I don't care what date, just the earliest.
Yeah.
Do we need a
So
date?
it'll be for the public hearing to be on November 16th, I think, but, so this is the other thing, just flexibility, because the Greenfield, or the Southwest now, or whatever it is, sometimes doesn't publish stuff.
Exactly.
So just the minutes need to reflect how critically important it is that the notices be published for this. This would be, and I know they read the minutes. This cannot be missed. And I encourage someone in the finance department or the clerk's office or whoever is responsible for the publication of that notice to follow up with them and to verify that it is in fact published. Because it will be really, really bad if it's not.
So, discussion on that motion? Do we need a roll call? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4, discussion and decision regarding contract amendment between the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services and the Greenfield Health Department related to 2022 Consolidated Contract Grant funding related to public health emergency preparedness.
He's got to turn the mic on.
A second. Huh? I can still hear you. Don't yell. There you go.
You told everybody I wasn't happy, so yelling would go along with that, right?
Well, I'm not trying to be negative. But are you happy? Could you
You
have
said
used-
every
could you-
health department or every department head was unhappy, so I'll just go
Well, it
with
could
that.
be unhappy. Well, you're happy. You're generally by your nature happy, but you certainly didn't
Just a
get
jovial
everything.
individual,
I know
yes.
you are. I'm just trying.
Well, good evening, alderpersons. The item before you tonight is for Public Health Preparedness Grant funding that continues again for next year. This is the Public Health Preparedness Grant as well as the City's Readiness Initiative Grant before you. This funds general public health emergency preparedness, and we've had this contract for real close to 20 years right now. This came really on the heels of 9/11 and the smallpox stuff back in 2001, 2002. So any questions?
So would you be unhappy if we denied it?
I don't know, we'd be turning down $52,000. It probably wouldn't be great.
Yeah, yeah. Make a
Got-
motion to approve.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, discussion and decision regarding agreement between Curative Labs Incorporated and the City of Greenfield Health Department related to pop-up event letter agreement.
Yeah, so before I talk about this item, I'll just say that this item may not move forward, but it would be great if you guys could approve it this evening. What this item is for is it's for a Zone D COVID testing site, and specifically my partners in Zone D, which would be Hales Corners, Greendale, and Franklin, have been working on this for the better part of a week and a half, really to provide additional testing capability or allow additional PCR-based COVID-19 testing availability within this corner of the county. As you may have heard over the last several weeks, the COVID testing site at American Family Field was closed for the Brewers playoff run, which is now ended, but shifting that site now to the DOT on 24th and St. Paul has also probably made that site less desirable for people from this area to attend. So we're certainly monitoring the situation closely, and if we needed to set up a pop-up testing site, Curative is one of the vendors we're looking at. There's another one called Redididus, and that is its name. I didn't stutter, Redididus. But what we want to do is make sure we can provide rapid PCR-based testing, so test results that come back in 24 to 48 hours for people who need COVID testing in this area of the county. Curative and Redididus and other vendors that are out there have the capability of bringing a mobile van, a small RV, doing testing basically in a drive-through capacity in a parking lot. So what this agreement would be, this would be between Curative and the City of Greenfield. There is no cost to the City of Greenfield. All we need to do is provide them space, and they may need restroom facilities for their employees that are there for that particular shift. If I do decide, or if we as collectively in Zone D decide to go to with a different vendor and still house the Curative or Ridiculous van at either the Colwickie or the Conkle parking lot, I will come back to you with that agreement at that time.
Can I ask you, Darren, I know I'm not on the board, but where would you put this? Would you put this in the parking lot in the back of the park or by Layton Avenue?
The most likely and best place would be somewhere that's a little bit visible, somewhere that's close to a bus line, somewhere that's easy to be accessed. When we met with Curative, they work on an appointment-based schedule, so they certainly are able to minimize traffic jams and all of those sorts of headaches that, you know, Miller Park was great, or AmFam was great for that because there's large parking lot. You could queue up many, many cars. But right now, either a Colwickie or a Conkle would be the best option. They've got a small van. They do all the testing out basically in the line of cars as they would come through. And
it would be
again, appointment-based, correct.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like it. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Just want to say one thing too. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Darren, we had an ICC meeting on Monday, which can always be grueling. I just wanted to thank Darren. He came and gave a very good, objective presentation of what's happening, and in an environment that's sometimes full of wolves and lions. So just wanted to thank him for that, because that's not. I don't think y'all realize that some people are getting really worn out. Not saying that Darren is, because he's but this is exhausting.
Yeah.
Just
Oh.
seriously, to realize that the world is 50% this and 50% that, and sometimes 70-30, and to navigate down the middle of it. I just want to publicly thank Darren for everything that he's been doing on behalf of the city. Continues to make us look very, very good in the eyes of others, and that is not an easy thing to do. I just wanted to say,
Thank you.
and I'm not going to compliment you ever again. So
Can I give another accolade to this gentleman, too? He is going to do a class with me at the Greenfield High School. We're going to be giving a presentation to a health class sometime in November with regards to local government and health. I was asked to do that, and I begged Darren to come with me, and he kindly said yes, and we are going to do that together in November.
Yeah, I contemplated that, but was afraid of what I'd say.
I'm very excited about that, and I really thank Darren for doing this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Students will do well listening to you,
Yes,
Hopefully.
although you do teach charity, don't you?
yes.
Yes, I have.
Item 6.
Did we approve?
Yes.
I thought so.
All right.
Item 6, discussion and decision regarding contract amendment between the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services and the Greenfield Health Department related to 2022 grant funding related to public health pandemic response, preparedness, and recovery related to COVID-19.
Thank you. And in case any of you have ever wondered why I break these into chunks and there's 3 separate agenda items, it's because of how the state does the contracting. So they'll sometimes lump things as consolidated grants and put a whole bunch of little categories underneath them, and sometimes they send them out individually. So what I have done, just for simplicity tonight, is talk about COVID. The prior one was about public health emergency preparedness broadly, and the next one is about core public health services. So because I never know how they're coming through, and I certainly want to be transparent, that's why I break them out the way I did. This particular item is all about acceptance of the grant monies that are specific for COVID-19. So the next round of COVID-19 funds. The only one that's currently allocated and reflected in the 22 budget is the first one listed there, the one that's titled COVID ELC with an allocation of $439,000. That's because that was the only one I was aware of back in June, July, when we started the budget process. Later in August, these other funds started coming out including ELC COVID contact tracing, including ARPA, which this ARPA is different than the city's ARPA, even though they have the same umbrella, because this is money that the state designated for local health departments. There's an immunization and vaccine sub-grant, and then there's a Fep Workforce Grant. So Fep stands for Public Health Emergency Preparedness, but this is a workforce, kind of a workforce development grant. So if you're confused, I'm also sometimes confused as well. But the 5 grants are listed there with their allocations. The dollar amounts are probably pretty specific, but I never trust anything from the state until I see a final contract amendment. And even though these have been talked about and allocated starting in August, I have not seen that final allocation or that contract. So I just wanted to kind of get ahead of things so that when we get to that point of having a contract, it can quickly get signed. So this one I do not have kind of that formal documentation that we need just yet. You will see here that that's a lot of money. So much money that I almost choked there. Did you see that? But I just want to remind you that the grant timelines extend in some cases over 4 years. So the 1.28 million over 4 years is really about $330,000 a year, which is very similar to funding that we received for public health COVID response in 2020. So just want to conceptualize that for you. And in working with the finance department, we've budgeted kind of the allocation that would be seen or realized in that fiscal year. Of course, if we don't spend it in that year, that money still, remains to us for the duration of that grant, if that makes sense. So,
If I could just interrupt too. So what he said was important, and I know you caught it, but the ARPA money, the 3.9 million that we're talking about, is different than that ARPA money. So this idea that, well, if the 1.5 million that we could spend on anything based on less revenue, but the other 2.4 million of ARPA money, while it can be used for COVID-related kinds of things, consistent with that, there's another pot of money that's about, could be 1.2 million, 1.3 million, right? That's out there for the COVID response. So the 2.4 million of the money that we were talking about earlier isn't going to be for COVID, likely.
right.
I just want you guys to know that.
Could it be used for the 3rd shot?
All of this funding, basically this funding is available for disease investigation, contact tracing, the vaccination component, the education and the outreach. There's money in here to build workforce and workforce trainings. The way I've approached grant fundings in the past, and I think we've had this philosophical conversation in previous years when I've been here, is that we use it for the things that we need to do, but then we leverage it heavily for things that will benefit us long term. So we have, through the course of COVID, upgraded our electronic health record that we brought online 4 or 5 years ago. There were modules that we needed to create. There were things that we could do better. There was a time tap system that we could use for scheduling vaccines that with the click of the button here entered into our EHR, and down the road that makes things like billing for immunization clinics or influenza clinics very, very easily, very, very easy. So again, we're going to use this as creatively as possible, but day in and day out, we're still getting 8 to 12, 15 cases of COVID. So there's still a lot of, on the ground work to do. And very soon we'll have COVID vaccination booster clinics likely coming. Next month is very likely we'll have 5 to 11-year-olds eligible for vaccines. So all of those things happen with this funding.
If I lose my card, can I get a new one?
Absolutely.
No, can you? That's so somebody actually asked me that. It's like, I know you can get one for $10 with
But that's from the Chinese.
misspelled, but
Yeah, we've been told the cards you're not supposed to give out. The real structure for immunizations in the state is the Immunization Registry. So if you, Alderperson Kastner, are in the Immunization Registry and you can access that, that is better than the card because that's in the cloud, something you can access by putting in your name and your social security number. Yes,
My vaccination's in the cloud
it is.
that I can access.
If you call me and we put your social security number in to tie to your account and you go in and you put Carl Kastner 123456789, your record will be there.
So this is a universal vaccination system.
Correct.
I didn't know that actually existed.
Yeah. And your healthcare system should be linked to it too. So it is bi-directional from healthcare systems, just not all the healthcare systems are using it that way.
Oh, I haven't been to the doctor in 20 years, but yeah.
Well,
I don't think Aurora's doing it.
Huh?
Right, I don't think Aurora,
it's set up for
Because-
all of them, but how well it's operationalized depends a lot. Like they have to go out there in their EMR and select the person and have that data come in, so it becomes bi-directional.
Is going into schools to give the COVID vaccine something that is possible?
Yeah, we talked about that
Oh.
a lot across local health departments. One of the reasons we probably won't for the city of Greenfield is for the next age group that's eligible, the 5 to 11-year-olds, we like to have a parent present, even if it's an adolescent and a parent signs off on it. I've got a 10-and-a-half-year-old daughter. She would put on a brave face, but she's not the bravest when it comes to getting a shot. So we're more apt to bring people in here, encourage people to go to their pediatricians and other sites. Pharmacies are giving vaccines too, but pharmacists have to have a comfort with giving vaccines to kids, and that sometimes is a skill, like, restraining the kids so they don't run away, all of those sorts of things. But several of my colleagues have talked about that. It might be something they do, going to the school physically, but after hours may be an option. But we have found just as much response, if not more, by having clinics here for school-age populations than going to the school. And logistically, it just works better too. We're not Amazon, so it's
Right.
hard for us to get everything there, but if people come here, we have everything we need here.
just to be clear, that should not be interpreted that you're going to physically restrain students to give them a vaccination.
Correct. But sometimes with the help of a parent, we have to physically restrain to give a shot.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, my
Opposed?
pediatrician said come here to get the shots when the kids were young.
Right.
Because of other shots.
Yeah, and it's changed so much over the years. For a period of time, everybody
Very
should have come to
unanimous.
public health from the funding point of view, but now the model in healthcare is kind of the medical home model, so they really want you to have a, primary care doctor and kind of push you to the pediatrician. But
Oh, that
again,
wasn't his reason. His reason was, so they were more afraid of you than the doctor.
well, that works too.
We're on 7 now, right? Item 7, discussion and decision regarding contract amendment between the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services and the Greenfield Health Department related to 2022 Consolidated Contract Grant Funding related to core public health services.
Yeah, so this last portion tonight is the specific grant funding that relates to the historical public health programs. So lead prevention, childhood immunizations, maternal and child health, and then the broad prevention grant. So we've had these before us for probably 30 plus years at this point. The dollar amounts are there. These are things that we do day in and day out. Much of this work supports staff and supports programs in these areas. And it ranges from education on lead poisoning prevention for homeowners and renters to providing vaccinations for measles, mumps, chicken pox, all of those good things that that we know we need for our kids. So any questions on that?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thanks.
Can I, that last two items, did you have any additional information?
The last two, maternal and child health and prevention.
Yeah, 6 and 7. Were there any other attachments?
Just the, not yet, because that contract
That's
amendment
kind of
has
what
to
you
come,
said,
yeah.
yes. Okay. I just thought I was missing something.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it.
Sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't, but one of the things that kind of sucks sometimes about the state is you have to have that contract amendment in all the signatures, and then you hope to be able to pull the money 60 days later. So we're getting close to the end of the year, so I want to make sure we are kind of set up and ready to go for January 1.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, you.
Item 8, approval of schedules of disbursements in the amount of $1,280,645.30.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item 9, approval of mileage reimbursements in the amount of $26.99. And item 10, accept August 2021 financial statement.
I'll make a motion to approve the mileage.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries
I'll
unanimously.
make a motion to accept the financial statement for August 2021.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 11, discussion and decision to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.851 CEF to consider the following. A, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. B, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, wages, insurance, or investing of public funds. C, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. Could I have a roll call, please?
Motion to go into closed session.
Sorry.
Second.
Thank you. Now could I have a roll call?
Alderperson Kastner,
Aye.
Alderperson Bailey,
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian.
Aye.
Should we note that also in attendance is,
What time?
You're going to stay.
The time is 7:21.
And also in attendance is Alderperson Denise Collins.
who's in charge of doors?
I will. So I did, do I stop recording or pause? I don't remember.
Technically pause and then start it when you go out, but
I'm going to pause it.
She's coming.
you texted her?
I did.
I'm pausing it. Is that going to be good, or do I stop it? Pause or stop?
Pause is what we're supposed to do, because then it's one tape and they don't have to load the end of it, but if we really don't care the end, then you can just stop
You should
it.
probably turn off all your mics, though, just in case.
Surely. I didn't
Is
catch,
it okay if I leave? There's nothing that I need to talk about.
I didn't catch who, Bruce
you get the money?
approved the, or
Should
did
you
make
get
a
the
motion
money?
for the financial statements? Who did the second?
I guess I knew that answer.
I didn't catch.
Maybe we really, I don't know.
Bye, Mike.
You dropped your pen, Shirley.
Oh, thank you.
I think Jennifer should get whatever she wants. If it were me. I have to go visit somebody,
So do I. Who else has to go
but I'm just,
visit some?
but you're actually voting and I don't have to.
Good presentation, Mike.
Was it okay, seriously?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Well, I hope
Yeah.
so. It was pretty thorough.
Well, I just don't want y'all to think that.
And then,
Although I have questions, but I'll talk to them.
No, you can always ask.
and then if you can send me a question, because I'm gonna talk to Voss, and I'm gonna say,
I've tried to, I've emailed
Well,
him, I've been
there-
snarky with him, I've been friendly to him, I've been all sorts of things.
there's a panel,
You
and
only get his assistant, he'll smile at you and say this, and he'll smile at you and say that. He won't answer any of your questions,
Well,
and then
well, no.
he'll, yeah.
yeah,
that's what he'll do.
he's not gonna, it might not do anything, but I'm not intimidated by him. I'll have a question, and I'm gonna say, this is what you're doing to the cities. You know, how can we address this?
He's
And then you can send me that question,
He's
or
extremely
two maybe.
cocky.
yeah.
Which I guess I would be too if I was him, because I'm kinda cocky with what I do.
And we got a secret weapon. Denise knows a lot of these, she's
Denise is our,
a secret weapon.
I'll give you some information that.
She's the ace up our sleeve. Because she knows all of these big shots. She knows the head of the president of the city municipal league.
President of the United States, she knows.
Well, the
No,
president,
I don't.
Well, yeah.
Don't say stuff like that.
Well, you know people that.
Okay.
Surely it was at the last president's for our
Last
presentation.
one, not this one.
Carl, can you do the recording? I apologize.
What am I doing?
When we come out of closed session, do you know how to turn it back on?
I imagine hit pause again, it'll go off pause, just a guess.
Yeah, she knows everything. Jennifer knows.
Make sure it's on,
everything.
we gotta make sure it's on pause.
It's on pause now, he wants it when it goes off pause.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
and then
we can
you
do
just
that.
hit start recording.
We just hit start recording?
Yep.
And then when the meeting's over?
You can hit, when you're all completely done, you can hit stop. But every time you want to pause it, just hit pause
And then,
and then start, and if you're completely done, hit stop.
Seems, makes sense.
Okay.
Kinda like a cassette player.
Yeah, wow.
Okay.
What's happening here? Jennifer's going to
So,
talk? You're
yeah,
gonna
so
talk?
Jennifer wanted to discuss the pay for Lisa. Lisa was promoted, it was back in May, and within the promotion, the previous position she was in, the admin assistant position, as opposed to the deputy clerk position, the two salaries overlap. So not really, I mean, you could call it compression, but it's more the actual salaries overlap. And so when Lisa received the promotion, she was at step 4 out of the 5-step pay range. And so she received a pay increase, went to the step 1 of the new position. So it truly was a promotional opportunity, went to the very next higher pay step. I think what was realized by Lisa and brought forward to Jennifer recently was that Lisa, if she had stayed in the admin assistant position, she would have reached her next eligibility to receive her normal step increase at her 1-year anniversary at the end of August, so August 29th. And that step increase would have put her at the 5th step within the previous pay range and put her at a slightly higher pay rate than where she's currently at within her promoted position. So I think the concern and question is like possibly, you know, what, I don't know if Lisa's asking or having this brought forward, or Jennifer, but looking for some direction to, you know, if a pay increase is going to be considered, to adjust her pay or leave it where it's at. I did run some numbers. You know, I understand the concern. I look back for other individuals that were promoted. It looks like other individuals, I was able to find one that was really almost exactly the same as Lisa's, and that individual was moved exactly to the next higher step within the promoted pay range, but we did not take into consideration future pay increases on a previous position that was left. So I think that's what the request is taking into consideration the fact that she could have stayed in the position and been making a higher pay rate at the moment. So you can chime in.
Yeah, so Lisa did bring it to my attention because what happened is she took the promotion to deputy clerk and got a demotion in pay. Essentially, you know, I think she wouldn't have brought it to my attention if it didn't make her feel bad. I think it equates to about 65 cents an hour, which is like $2,000 over a period. I think that if someone gets a promotion, they probably would feel better if they had the pay that went with it. So yeah, I think, you know, this year, when I look at our budget, we should be fine this year because we were without a clerk typist from January to mid-February, so we weren't paying any the first step to the second step. If we were to move her up to her second step, which would just, make up for that pay difference between the positions.
And just to kind of clarify, when she received her promotion, she did receive a higher rate of pay. It was not a decrease in pay. So at the time she accepted the promotion, she was at $30.15 an hour, and she was placed in the new position at the starting pay, which was $30.56 per hour. So she did receive a pay increase. The problem is that she's looking at now where she would have hit that 1-year anniversary from her previous position and been entitled to that step increase, and that step increase would have brought her up to $31.63 per hour. So that $31.63 is above the $30.56. So she'd be at the $30.56 per hour until her new anniversary, which is in May. So there's several different ways to look at this, I think. Keep it as is one option. You could maybe consider adjusting her pay coinciding with her previous anniversary date. You could adjust the pay to the second step coinciding with a promotion date. I don't have a recommendation. I can give you some pay differences, just kind of an overview of the differences for where she currently is at from January of this year through May of next year. So almost a 17-month, 16-month period, maybe less than that. Just that range of period approximate, just base salary, what she would be estimated to earn based on how she was promoted, as opposed to adjusting her based on different scenarios.
So she's at 65,000 or something, or?
Yeah, so annual, let me just do the math, annual, because I broke it down where it was more than a 12-month period, because I wanted to show the salary all the way through her new anniversary date, which is May of next year. So, let's see. Yeah, so 63.5, just over 63.5 is the new annual.
As a deputy city clerk.
I am confused. Are we talking about paying her back to where she was dissed? Or are we talking about paying this rate from now on?
So Lisa is requesting, and I think Jennifer is requesting for Lisa's pay to be moved from the starting pay of the deputy city clerk to the second step of the deputy city clerk, which is going from $30.56 an hour to $31.63 an hour. Because of the fact that if Lisa had stayed in the administrative assistant position, she would have, in August, received a step increase within the admin assistant position, and that would have caused her to receive a step increase to $31.21 per hour. So Lisa received a pay increase when she was promoted, so she got a pay increase earlier than her admin assistant anniversary. But now she's looking at, the fact that she's missing out on that last increase, and that last increase would have put her above where she is currently at with within the promotion.
So I think I've got that part down. So
Okay.
we're looking at either bumping up her pay by 65, no,
So,
to 3121, or we're looking at just putting her on step 2 at 3183.
yeah, so, right, it would go to 3163, it wouldn't.
And then that would hit the,
3163, 3183. I can't tell, I think it's 3163.
63.
It's 63.
I had 83 and that was wrong.
It's 63.
63.
The salary chart's super
okay.
small figurine.
So step 2 is 3163.
3163.
Okay.
Correct.
And that is effective when?
Well, that's where we're asking for your guidance. I don't have a good recommendation. I am gonna just caution that if we do it for this person, we did have another person this year, that same situation, we're gonna have to be consistent and that person the same way. Cause I don't feel that it would be fair.
What are we doing, this, like increasing it or going backwards? What?
I think your request is to increase.
My request would just be to bring her up to at least where she would have been at, had she stayed in that position in August. So, but it also, if you don't want to do that, it would make sense to go to the next step because it's not that much of a difference.
Well, what I'd be afraid of there would be in May or whenever it is,
42 cents more.
would she go to the 3rd step then?
Yes, she would.
Well, I don't like that.
Right. She's then way ahead salary-wise, correct.
So I would think if we put her to where she would be until her next step, she'll hit her next step and she'll go up then. Am I following this right?
Yeah.
I think
Hey.
so, and that's what I would say to do,
That does make sense.
what you just
That
said.
would have been
Say it again.
Say that again. We're not gonna put her at this next step.
We're not gonna do that until she hits the next step. We're gonna increase her pay to where she would have been if the 3121, if that number is correct. So immediately pay her the 3121, and in May she'll hit her second step. 3160. I gotta put glasses
All
on
right.
3.
Does that say?
That's okay.
3163.
Yeah.
That's okay with me.
3163. Does that seem?
Is that good for you?
I mean, I think that seems fair. Based
Okay.
on what she's brought up.
All right,
I'm game.
I'm
Do
good.
you think that sounds good?
I think that's fine. What effective date do you want to use for the adjustment to the 3121?
I still say, I don't like going backwards.
And if she was saying at her anniversary date in August, had she been in that position, it would have been August 29th that she would have started.
Can we do August 29th then?
September, October.
You guys have to do the number
I
crunching.
don't want to speak for finance.
The
I mean,
payroll
I know-
system can handle
Yeah.
it
It can be done?
physically.
We're talking 100, no,
So you get back, she'd get back pay of $100 or something.
no, maybe more.
Be more, let's see, 2 months, $100,
Yeah, whatever,
whatever it be.
whatever it is. It's fair.
All right,
Okay,
next.
So to 3121, coinciding with the previous,
August 29th.
yeah.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She's always been helpful, Lisa.
Good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
So for that item, is it gonna just have HR director proceed as directed?
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
Okay, so then my question is, the other person that was affected by this is Abby Garacki. You might remember she was promoted earlier in the year, and
From what?
So public health specialist to public health strategist, and so it was the exact same situation. So currently, she would have received her final step increase actually this month, and now been paid at a higher rate than what she's currently at. She has not brought this up she accepted the promotion, she knew, what the pay was at, so I'm pretty big about treating people fairly and consistently, to not cause any,
Internal?
yeah, don't like different departments being treated differently, people being treated differently, especially when this is comparing apples to apples, completely apples to apples.
Well, it's the right thing to do.
Right.
So
I mean, overall, we're just too nice around here, but as long as we're gonna
No,
be
but
nice to
that's smart,
one
because it
department,
costs
we have to
money.
be nice to the other department. You're right.
Right.
Okay, so we have to do it.
So Abby would be bumped up, and hers is minimal, and she's salaried, so she's not subject to overtime, so I don't think that the impact would be as significant. And do you want numbers or not? Do you care to
Just,
have numbers?
I guess, follow the same logic as we just did would be
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay, I can do that.
That we can proceed as directed as well?
Okay.
When does she come back from maternity leave? Do you
Oh,
know?
now that throws a wrench in it.
It doesn't, though. She's still entitled to.
I am kidding.
She's got a couple more weeks and she'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we just need one. I think we just need one proceed as directed for both of those, please. All right. So then the next thing was just the insurance renewal. I know the mayor mentioned when he was presenting the budget that our health insurance is renewing at 5%. That is definitely, we're locked in, which was really fantastic news, considering we do have some pretty significant cases that have been going on. Good news, bad news. The good news is a lot of those cases, like the majority of them, have not even hit for the insurance to really see those claims because of the data that they were pulling for this period. The bad news is that will catch up next year, so I think the bigger concern is what's gonna happen next year with the renewal. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it, and we should know pretty early into next year what it's starting to look like, and start having to do some research on maybe plan design change and being pretty strategic, because if it's what it's looking like we're thinking, our plan might not even be marketable. But for now, 5% renewal, no real plan changes. There was one plan change that we have no say-so over. It has to do with lab services. There should be little to no disruption to members. The dental renewed, slight increase, 3%, but our employees pay the full cost, so no impact on the city. Vision, we were locked into a 3-year contract, so no increase with that. The FSA plan, the administrative fee did not increase, and then same thing with the so we're getting pretty good administrative fee rates for both the administration of COBRA and FSA. So really, it was a pretty good, straightforward renewal, and I'm just looking for approval for the mayor to sign the acceptance. The plans don't have contracts per se, so all we do is have like an acceptance letter that the mayor signs. So any questions on any of that? No.
And so you'll know more, maybe next spring or something, come back to our committee and let us know of the bad news, or maybe.
I think come January, February, we'll start seeing some of the claims. Just to give you an idea, I think we had 3 babies in NICU. We've had 3 employees, 4 members overall, whether it's employees, spouses, who have had pretty significant ICU stays. 4 cancer cases, and now a recent one that has been added. We've we've also had some other, like, smaller cases, like surgical cases that have just been pretty significant, like, more than just a normal, like, you're going in and having a quick surgery. So we've had quite a few hits. Usually insurance would rather see, you know, a couple really huge claims and not gonna hit you that bad, but when you have so many, like, you know, $100,000, $200,000 claims, and, you know, we're probably racking up to 15 various ones right now. So it's been pretty rough for quite a few people over the past, like, 3, 4, 5 months. So, the only good thing is quite a few of them are, closing out, so their cases are done, but we're still gonna take a hit. What's that? What's that?
I was wondering how that could be phrased.
Yeah, the cases are closed out, that's how they refer to them. But, I mean, we're gonna have to pay for it at some point. The last thing I just want to bring up, we have not yet entered contract negotiations with Firearm Pd. Obviously, this is closed session. On the street, the word is that there is going to be the ask for a 3% wage increase. 3, 3, and 3, so 3 years, 3% wages for each of the 3 years.
Can we agree right now?
That it's not happening?
No, that ain't, no.
No, no, and no, yeah.
Yes, yes, and yes.
For what?
The 3, 3, and 3.
Can we do that? When we're budgeted for 2%?
Didn't you just say that they're gonna agree to 3%?
No,
They're gonna
that
come-
they are gonna be requesting a
3%.
3% 3-year contract, and the focus and what they're looking at is wages. They are focusing on wages. They want the money.
But we're comparable, aren't we, right in with,
We are. I ran a lot
on the high
of
end,
this.
aren't we?
We are. And so I have some pretty good data. They don't care, it doesn't seem like they care about a total compensation package. They don't know that I have been hearing these things. The good thing is people tell me things. So it could be an interesting and maybe a more difficult negotiation with the 2 different departments this year. Fire side, it definitely sounds like they're focused on 3% in wages. On the police side, they have new union representation, and from what I hear, that new union representation, McGillis Law Firm, they like to drag things out, and they are also, whereas the previous union was, you know, you're gonna pay the union dues and we're gonna just help you out no matter what. McGillis is on a retainer with our union, and anything that exceeds the retainer fee, the union has to pay. So we'll see what happens, but there's a couple other municipalities that haven't settled yet, so they are, you know, using old contracts right now. They're also using McGillis. So,
The fire and police aren't using the same.
they're not using the
Okay.
same, no.
And does
So-
our DPW, are they a union?
They are not union, they're non-rep, no.
Really? I did
So-
not know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I've discussed this with the mayor, and you know, we only have but so much money that we can, you know, increase salaries and take the hit on the employer side for the 5% insurance increase. So I'm just looking for direction from you, that if it's gonna be so important to the union that they have 3% in wages, then we're
What do we paying now?
2% increase year over year, that's what it's been historically.
And you don't think 3 is a good number? I appreciate that. I really do.
I heard during a finance director meeting yesterday, another community, they're doing 1.5 in January and then 1.5 later in the year. It
To help
doesn't
with the
equal-
budget?
It doesn't equal 3%.
Well, no.
So it's like 2.2.
End of the day it is, but yeah.
Right, right. But there's some people taking that, meaning that's a 3% increase they're getting.
And there's a lot of other communities that are doing that split, so they're getting maybe 1.5 in January, and then maybe another 1 in April. Oak Creek is doing something very different, like they're getting, they just entered into a 3-year contract all the way through 2024, and they have 1% for 1 year, it's different the second year, and then it's a split the final year. But it's, I guess we, in the budget, your budget reflects a proposed 2%, keeping the insurance still at a 12.6% premium share, which is so reasonable compared to what I have done some comparables on. And so if they're going to be focused on trying to get a 3% increase, where does the rest of that money come from? There's going to have to be give and take, so.
What does Milwaukee do, which is so much bigger than us, just out of curiosity, do you know?
I'd have to pull it up. I don't
I was
remember.
just curious.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee was 2.2, and I forget if they're settled for next year. I think they're settled for next year with a 2, if I remember correctly.
So what month are we talking about here? In 2022?
Negotiations are probably starting any minute. I'm surprised I haven't received notice to meet.
So this would be for January 22?
Our contracts are up at the end of
Oh.
this year.
Jeez,
So that's why we can't do 3.
yeah. So what
I thought we had all of 22 taken care of.
So the thought is if, we have so much money to, give, basically, whether
Right.
it's wage increases, insurance, if they're gonna be focused on the increase in wages because they want that compensation, they want the money in their pocket, then your insurance premium might be higher than 12.6 because the city can't absorb all that cost. So, what are your thoughts?
So with all the misinformation I was getting from West Dallas, do they really pay 25% of the health insurance?
Oh, I can tell you, because I do.
I
have
heard
them.
they paid more than
They
we
pay
do.
more, they
They
do
do?
pay a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to participate in a health risk assessment, and if they don't, they pay all the way up to 30%.
Okay.
The employee pays up to 30%.
Yeah, the employee pays up to.
And I know we were always low with that 12.8%.
We are almost, if not the lowest, yes.
Yeah, so
There's
we
one community
can
that-
use that as a negotiation too.
Right,
Say, you want it here, or what?
right,
But at some point in time, we can't give away the farm.
right. And
Right.
that was kind of my thought. I had been working with Tim to run some numbers, and the thought is it's either insurance plan design change, which would be on the HRA side and possibly have 2 separate plans, or the premium share. But, pick your
with those
poison,
jobs.
which is most important.
I would think they want the health insurance,
Well, they're
especially with
getting the
those
health
types of
insurance.
jobs.
Getting
They're
the health
just gonna
insurance,
have
but
to
they
pay
want
more.
they want
They
the
pay-
wages. They
Yeah,
want
but
the
I-
wages.
They don't want to pay more, obviously. But it's low, their contribution is low compared to other
I
things.
know, but
It's
I'd rather,
$95.
For a single, yes,
Okay, it's 276.
if it's a family.
For a family plan?
well,
For the
whatever,
employee.
that's, I
Yeah.
don't understand that,
Oh.
or not in their minds, so.
Mike was always saying though that we're budgeting at 2% and that's sort of a target figure. If negotiations take us over that, then where do we get that money from?
It's gotta come out from somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the, the purpose of, why, Mayor wanted this discussed tonight, is to just kinda FYI, negotiations are starting, word on the street is this. So it might not be as simple of a negotiation this year. I think that we're prepared. I've done some pretty good comparables, to show, look, this is still a great place. Your salary is still as good, if not better, than the majority of the other departments around. Your insurance premium is still the least compared to the others. Vacation is still almost better than everywhere else. Holidays, is still, and holidays are average, they're fine. But, all those things, the environment in both departments, I think, no problems. So I just, I'm letting you know that there could be some lengthy, extended negotiations. And maybe we're gonna be way over-prepared, which would be really nice.
Well, see, I was at a fantasy football draft at Bar, 69th and Edgerton, and after our draft, the cops, the police department was meeting there, and they're having a union meeting. So we were all sort of mixed. We're done with our draft, and so I talked to a couple officers, and I gave them my condolences as far as, their officer being shot, and that was right after that, in that time period. But anyhow, I got to talking to them, a few of the officers that I know at the bar, and they're saying, yeah, we went for, they explained how they went to a different union. They didn't like that union.
Law firm?
And they went to this law firm so I can see that maybe this law firm, just the gist I got of it, they're maybe promising more things than just to get their business. So maybe they'll be more saber rattling because of this change. Yeah.
So, but you have to remember, just like you said, besides, the money and the other insurance, et cetera, they like Greenfield for some reason, or reasons, right? They come from other places,
They do.
and they want Greenfield. So you have to emphasize that. What are those reasons? Like,
Right.
and I'm not sure of all of them, but that's what, we have to find out and emphasize that. And then one other question, stupid question maybe. So what happens if, how long can this go on? We don't come to an agreement. What if, can they
Go to
strike?
arbitration.
Oh, arbitration. Are they allowed to strike?
No.
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 Right?
It's in the
They aren't
contract
allowed
that
to
they're not,
strike.
they cannot.
So then you just go.
No, so if we
But then they get the
don't
back
settle,
pay, they get the back pay.
they can
for
have
sure.
the back
Yeah.
pay. So if this extends on into next year, then we follow the current contract until it actually is settled. And if they get a pay increase, then they do get the back pay. I
The
mean,
law firm probably
my
has a-
goal is for that to not happen.
Oh, yeah, of
and,
course, but I'm just
Obviously, when
wondering.
they present what they're interested in, if it seems clear that they are focused on 3% and they're not gonna budge from that, then it's like, coming back with, all right, here's where we're gonna have to take that money. We're gonna recoup it from insurance premiums, maybe the HRA. The easiest is insurance premiums.
Well, you won't make it up, though.
Yeah. we
Close,
could.
isn't that close?
I think we could.
I think, I
think
don't know
we
if my inputs, I can
Yeah,
give it,
go on.
but I think definitely the insurance, that should be one thing that you should, and I don't think I would make it extremely attractive. I would use that as bargaining.
Carl, don't you remember when the mayor got, they got a restraining order against the mayor with the insurance and that?
Really?
Which, that was
They were pushing-
before. Wasn't that, the extension was with Besson?
That was no,
Oh.
That
That
was,
was here.
that's Mike yet?
yeah. when it was around, it was right around
Yeah,
Act
right,
10.
yeah.
When was that? How
It
long
was
ago?
$10,000
When was that?
deductible for the health insurance, and their premiums were gonna be outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what, about 6, 7 years ago, or?
Act 10 is actually almost 10 years old now.
Yeah.
10
I was
years
gonna
ago?
say that, yeah. I still remember that.
Yeah,
Act.
different
Yeah.
governor.
remember the restraining.
Yeah. I remember back with cider had an issue too, I remember too.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
Yeah. I think it just negotiations didn't happen until after. Oh, if I was a betting man, I'd go with 2-3-3 and I think we'll be okay. And comparable, but I like the 3 years locking them in.
Yeah, and, you know, the direction from mayor is, you know, 3-year contract, that's what has happened historically. He's good also with a 12.6 remaining for insurance and 2%. I mean, in my mind, that's still a fantastic contract to lock people in for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when you don't know what the budget is gonna be, you
Yes.
know, in a couple of years from now, but we'll see.
But the
what
health, I'm
happens.
definitely on board making up the health insurance, cause we're giving it away still free as in my eyes, and that free health insurance for any employee is not reasonable.
So we're just making you aware, in case I'm back, you know, the next meeting and letting you know that things are going in a really bad direction. Or maybe we.
Good luck. Stay tough.
Some kind of agreement.
These are monthly costs, right?
What's that?
These are monthly costs?
$290.
Yes.
I did find a couple of blazers that I have that have padded shoulders that you could wear and look tough when you go in.
You know, I don't, yeah, that's okay. I don't.
You go, you
Just
go in
kidding.
meek, you go meek and,
I had to call, somebody randomly who was on shift one day, and, that person, I heard kind of tripped out because HR was randomly calling for something, so.
Or I'll be your bodyguard.
So, yeah, I don't know, and there's no reason for people to, you know, be like nervous if I just.
No, I'm
randomly, but
goofing around.
that's just kind of funny.
They'll be fine.
That's all. So really, I don't need any direction coming out of closed session for just the update on negotiations. I just need
13 and 14.
Just direction for Jennifer's item, and then for the mayor to sign the insurance. I think we're done.
so we hit play?
That's what Jennifer said.
Good
Or
luck.
start.
Start recording.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Make a motion. Make a motion to reconvene into open session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Open session at what time?
Read number 13.
8:04. Item 13, decision regarding deputy city clerk's pay.
Proceed as directed, Human Resource Director. Make a motion to speak like Yoda. I do.
And your second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14, discussion and decision to approve the United Healthcare Health, Dental, Vision Flexible Spending Account, Health Reimbursement Account, and COBRA benefits as presented for 1/1/2022 through 12/31/2022, and authorize mayor to sign acceptance of United Healthcare offer of coverage letter.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item 15, topics for future agenda.
I have just one thing, and it pertains to the future meeting dates. So we have a future meeting date of November 24th, which is the day before Thanksgiving. So I would recommend maybe canceling it. And then we also have a meeting scheduled on December 8th. December 8th is actually the Wednesday after the Tuesday common council meeting because of how the month falls. So my recommendation would be to schedule the finance meeting for December 1st. I think it would be important for us to make sure that we have that scheduled because we'll probably have like the non-rep resolution. I know I have like another contract bringing forward and, you know, hopefully whatever else on that December 1st, so then it can be approved by council on December 7th. So can I move forward with changing those?
Sounds good to me. Is
I
that okay
agree.
with everyone?
I guess we have another opinion here, council member.
Okay, we don't need
Even
a
follow?
motion, or do we?
Yeah,
No,
Yes, we're
no,
good.
we don't need a motion. or-
that'll
Okay,
work.
Make it
Okay.
work.
okay,
There you
sounds
go.
good. Anything else? Okay, item 16,
Motion to adjourn.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 8:08 PM. Thank you. So.
One
Right.
question, this ARPA money,
We still